Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Wednesday, and I'm back. I've taken a couple weeks. I was on a couple weeks vacation, but we're back, and it's good to be back and good to be joining you for Good News Wednesday. Just a time where I share a little bit of good news with you. And now, what I want to talk about today, your initial reaction may not be, you may not feel like it's good news. Your initial reaction may be like, I don't know if that's good. And what I want to share with you and talk to you about today, just briefly, is this idea that change is in the air. And, some of us have kind of this reaction to change. And we get a little bit nervous, we get a little bit stressed. Some of us would say, I don't like change. But here's the reality. The reality is change is all around us. And we know that, right? As much as some of the change we don't like, and especially change that's outside of our control, change is all around us. Seasons are changing. Have you noticed any of the changing of the seasons? The nights are getting cooler. I came to work today. As I parked in the parking lot, I looked over upriver, on the upriver side of the church, and there's a maple changing to red. I know, too soon, right? Too soon. But change is in the air, and the reality is seasons are changing, our lives change, the world around us changes. And I know sometimes we don't like change, and a lot of change is outside of our control. Not all change is good. I'm not trying to say all change is good. But the reality is change does happen. And it happens all around us. Now, some changes we like. Or we at least we have mixed emotions about them. I just spent a couple weeks away. We got to visit our first granddaughter. I'll try not to talk too much about how beautiful Elizabeth is and how she's just the most precious little baby that ever was. But and so I found myself just sitting there and thinking, how did this happen? Well, I know how it happened. But anyway, we won't go there. But how did this happen that my son, who used to be so small, is now a father and I'm a grandfather? That's change. But I have to say, it's really cool. It's really amazing. It's such a blessing, it's such a blessing to be with them. See, so not all change is bad, even though sometimes we react to change in ways that, well, we feel like it's negative. And the reality is we've all gone through a lot of changes, and we will continue to go through a lot of changes. That's just the reality of life. Things change, our bodies change, churches change. And so I've been, and I wrestle with change just as much as everybody else does. We're in a new season. I'm going to be talking this Sunday at our church about new beginnings. And, we've been through a lot of things and a lot of changes, but new beginnings and change brings opportunity. And so there are a lot of positive things that can come as a result of the changes that go on around us and in us and in our families. And so we need to find those opportunities, and we need to be reassured. And that's what I want to do today. I want to reassure you that if you're going through change, and if there are things that are going on in your life that maybe are just hard, because change is hard. I'm not trying to pretend like change isn't hard. It is. And so, as our families change, as our churches change, some kids are back starting school the last couple weeks. Some are going to university for the first time, going through all these changes. And it can be hard. It's not always easy. It can be stressful. But God is with us in it. And that's the good news today. The good news is God is with us in these moments. If we seek to be faithful to Him, no matter what's going on around us, see, we can't always choose whether the changes that are impacting us happen or not. Sometimes change happens and we have no choice in it. But what we do have is we have a choice to be faithful. And we have a choice to put our trust in God, regardless of what's going on and what changes we experience in life. And so I want to encourage you today. I want to encourage you that as change is in the air, whether it's change in season, change in families, whether you see different things and things, I've heard it said a lot lately, like things just aren't the same, and based on all that's happened over the last few years, there's been a lot of changes and everybody's been going through a lot. But in the midst of the change, there is opportunity and we can always trust God in the midst of it all. So I want to provide you just with a passage of scripture that I've been meditating on, and it's been a real encouragement to me. And it comes from Deuteronomy chapter 31, verse 8. That's a part of the Bible in the Old Testament. And this is long, long ago, and God's people were experiencing a great deal of different things and change in their life and change in leadership. And Moses was kind of handing things over to Joshua. God's people were going to be led into a different place, into a new land. They weren't really certain of what it would be like. They'd been told a lot of things, but it was still new. It was still change. And then there was a new leader. They'd only known Moses, and now Moses says, I'm not going to lead you any longer. And so there was great changes coming. Change was in the air, and this is what we read. The Lord himself goes before you and will be with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. If change is in the air, if you're going through changes in life, we all are. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. Because if you trust God, if you are faithful, no matter what's going on, if you are faithful, the Lord himself goes not just with you, but the Lord goes before those who put their trust in him. I love that. You know, we think about God being with us, and God is with those who put their trust in him, who are faithful to him. He wants to walk with us. He's not going to force his way into our lives, but he wants to walk with us. But he also goes before us. And so if you're going through change in your life, just know God has been there before you arrived. God goes before us. That's what he told his people. And this promise still stands. The author of Hebrews, in Hebrews chapter 13, verse 6 said, remember what God said? Because God said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. So God is with us. He is the constant amidst the life of change that sometimes we find ourselves in. And so I pray that will encourage you today, because I trust that, like me, like a lot of us, you experience change in your life. Some of it we don't like. Some of it we embrace. Having a granddaughter to hold is a change. But man, it felt so good. And it is so good. And so within the changes that we experience in our life, there can be challenges, but there can also be opportunities. And God is with us, and he is ahead of us. And he goes ahead of us, so let's trust in him. God bless you today. Peace be with you, and have a great Good News Wednesday.